Ladies, let's touch on, because we haven't hit it yet, we really need to explain to our viewers the difference between mental health and mental illness. So mental health is caring for your psychological and emotional well-being.
Yep,
absolutely.
Mental health is totally different. It's when you struggle with these issues mentally. That can be a disorder. It can just be an illness. And people don't understand. The same way you struggle in your body every so often, you can struggle with your mental health. I mean, that's stress, anxiety, grief, trauma. It's so many issues, and people don't understand it. Right.
Yeah, the mental illness. Yeah, absolutely. And I think Jules hit on it earlier. It's mental wellness and mental health is an ongoing daily way to take care of yourself.
Which is why prayer is a good coping skill, because that helps you to take care of your mental health.
It's meditation. It's mindfulness. It's taking breaks and doing things nice and loving and kind and compassionate for yourself.
Self-care.
Self-care. So when you don't take care of self, that's when mental illness.
Yes. This is the ideal of the show. Talking about unspoken society and culture norms. Our environment can be stressors. Our culture can be stressors.
And hopefully we can talk about that a little later in the show too.
Yeah, because there are cultural issues that we have to deal with. There are cultural issues that, you know, we're trying to stick to and still live in society, and without feeling like, okay, we're going against, you know, who we are as we're being taught. There's a lot of issues that, you know, contribute to that. Our physical health, you know, sometimes you can have pain in your body and that can affect your mental health. And so we need to think about this. Divorce.
Or sometimes your mental health is what's causing the physical pain in your body.
Exactly.
Have those somatic symptoms, especially with depression, when your whole body hurts. Absolutely.
Yeah, and people don't understand divorce, unemployment, relationship problems, financial problems. All of these, family history can just affect your mental health. And so we need to start talking about these things. We need to talk about trauma. Jules, help me with this. We need to talk about trauma. It's different. Most people think that trauma only occurs if you're physically or sexually abused. That's so not true.
That is not true. I mean, when people think of trauma, whenever I have that question, they think of something huge, gigantic, catastrophic. And sometimes in some of the things that you just talked about, a divorce can be traumatic. Not only can it be traumatic for the individuals who are divorcing, it can be traumatic for the children that are involved. Traveling from place to place. We have our children who are in the military who are going to different areas with parent or not. That can be traumatizing, and that's something that they can seek help with. It's just a matter of understanding what it is and seeking out help.
We have to know that trauma looks different for everybody, and everybody experiences it differently. Look, guys, we got to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to come back with Miss Karen McKoy, and we're going to talk with her about her experience with losing a loved one from suicide. So please don't go anywhere. Stay right there, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Intake. I'm Bertha Barrett, and we're here with Karen McKoy. She is an international speaker, the founder of Life Interrupted Grief Recovery Program, where she shares her wisdom with thousands of listeners on how to get back up after life has dealt with you. She is also the author of For God I Will Lay Down My Isaac. Hi, Karen. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, ladies?
Great. It's good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So just give our viewers a little bit of history on yourself. Give us a little background history on yourself.
Well, background about myself. I'm from Jacksonville, currently live in Colorado Springs, Colorado with my husband and a couple of 7 children.
Okay.
I have been without my oldest daughter for 12 years. She's the one that committed suicide. And I've for me, it's just one of those things. So life has just been centered mostly the last 12 years around healing and what to do and living my new normal.
Okay, living your new normal.
Yeah,
I like that.
I like that.
Yeah, I definitely like that.
Maybe a couple of years before, it's one of those things when God calls you to do something and you kind of like, nah, I want to do that. So you go and do your own thing. Mm-hmm. And my daughter would always encourage me. It's like, Mom, you need to finish your book. You need to finish your book. And I was like, nah, that's too private. I don't want people to know me like that. So after she passed away, during my healing process, I would go to the doctors and try to do those 5 steps and all that stuff. It just didn't work for me. Right. So in the process of healing myself, I released the book. Mm-hmm. And then when people, read the book, because once I did the book and released the book, I was like, okay, I did that, God. Now, can we just chill with all this stuff? Right. And then it went on and it was like, no, I want you to continue. So I was inspired is a good word that I would use, because even after it, I hear her telling me, I'm proud of you. Right. I can feel the calmness. And it was such a sad occasion. And that's why I tell people sometimes I look at my life now on the other side of death, and there's no way in the world walking away from the grave I could ever, ever, ever see myself doing what I do now.
Yeah. That's very hard for a parent to lose a child from suicide. Yeah, that's very hard.
Period.
Yeah,
I just can't imagine.
Right.
Yeah.
And so mostly, and it was even more for me, I had to get over the embarrassment of the suicide. Because, if your child dies in a car accident or if they pass away, it's different. But then suicide isn't something that we as African American, we didn't do that.
Right.
It was like people would look at me and it was like I just felt that they were judging. So I had to get over not only what she did, how she did it, and then what she chose to do along with taking her life, because she also took my granddaughter's life first. So it was just a lot to deal with. And I think the first 5 years, I was in an emotional coma. I don't even know how I was surviving, how I was getting up, just going about life. Because now I tell people now, I've awake. What, 7 years, about 8 years ago? Well, no, about 3 years ago, I awoke from the coma, and it's like, wait, I got life to live. Right. I still had other kids that needed me. I have grandkids that need me. And life was still calling me. It wasn't saying, just fall down and die. Right. So I had to get over myself first.
Yeah.
Karen, I wanted to ask, as you look back, do you feel like, or would you say that there were some signs that you were able to see and you didn't really do anything about, or?
We had lost several patriarchic members of our family a year to 6 months before she died. And so if I look at it now, she started going pretty much down, not really doing what she was doing, which prompted me to move to Atlanta with her and just try to help. Thought maybe, that would help. But I never saw the signs of where she went. There was no way in the world I could have said that happened. Because, you usually give people encouragement and you talk to them and then they, brighten up. And she did. So we were good. But a week before she died, one of her friends that she went to college with, he committed suicide. And that took her, it was just like, I remember her asking me, she's like, I wonder how his mother's feeling. I wonder how his sisters and brothers are doing. And I was like, I don't know, Tanika. I have all 7 of my children, so I don't even know. I can't fathom. Not even knowing that 7 days later, I was going to know how she felt. So the signs weren't really, I tell people when they ask me that question, I can say after, yes, there were. But then now that I have some of my kids and some of my people that I counsel, they bounce back easier. And I don't know if it's just that they talk about it, but we talked about stuff. But she just, in her letter, she wrote me a 4-page letter. And she said it was just her time. She couldn't live with the pain of losing the people that she had lost.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot to take in. So you're a grief counselor. What do you say to a parent who loses a child to suicide? Because I mean, that's really tough to deal with. It really is.
Two that I've dealt with personally, I get a lot on Facebook with people, they're not ready. If you're not ready to deal with it, then you can't really say anything. But the two that have, they asked me the question, how did you get up in the morning? Well, first of all, some days I didn't get up in the morning. You know, I let my body do what it needed to do. That's what I was saying about the, you know, the that Ross model. That didn't work for me. That didn't work at all for me. Tried it and I got mad at the model because the model wasn't going right. This is how it is in real life. You can write the script, but but you can't follow it. So I tell them, first of all, don't blame yourself. You know, and that's just from my standpoint, because most of them say, what could I have done? And that's the first thing as a mother. It's like we blame ourselves as mothers. What could I have done to help my child? And then I had to realize my child was grown on her own, doing her own thing. And there was really nothing. I was literally there. So there wasn't. So I tell them, first of all, you have to decide how you want to do this. I don't give them my steps. Let's talk about what you need right now. How are you feeling right now? Do you want to scream? Do you want to kick on the floor whatever you want to do? So I kind of follow where they are.
Yeah.
And I tell them life after the grave. I usually don't want to talk to them when they find out it happens or whatever, because you're not even in your right mindset.
No, probably not even going to remember that conversation. Yep. Right.
So, and you don't even know, you got so many people around you. And luckily for me, I had an older daughter who was old enough. She grabbed the reins. I had my bishop. I had my first lady. I had people that were literally holding me up. I don't remember my feet touching the ground for the first month.
Yeah.
So that's what I tell them is you're going to have to, I feel you need that support. Yes. And if you don't, then I'm here for you.
Right.
I think it's important to highlight what you just said is meeting them where they're at instead of telling them where they need to be. I think that's very important with some of the things that we had talked about previous in the show, is that therapists aren't here to point you in the right direction. We're trying to give you an opportunity to speak, to be. Yeah, so I think that's great that you highlighted that.
And to take whatever strengths you have, and if it's your support group, if it's your faith, whatever it is that gives you that energy and that ability to make it through, that's what you highlight, and that's what you grab a hold of. I love the way that you just explained that. There's not a model that's going to tell me how to do this, and every single person does it differently. Absolutely.
I've learned that grief, it's just a date on the calendar. It happened this date, but every day I grieve every second. Probably when I finish with y'all, I'm probably going to go and cry my face out.
Yeah, I understand that, because 2017, I lost my mom. I talked to her the day before. The next day, she was gone. I lost my dad the same way. And I'm one of those people, I process things differently. So immediately after she passed away, I started getting in productive mode because I was over everything. And so I had to, set the funeral, make sure her state was okay, all of that. And it took me a while, and everybody was looking at me like, why aren't you crying? But it was just a delayed response. And so it took a week, and before I knew it, I was crying. There are some mornings I wake up and I just cry. I just graduated Saturday. And I woke up crying, but just to wake up and go, oh my God, they're not here in one of these great moments of my life. And so I think people just think that grief has a timeline, and it doesn't. And they think, and we use this term, it's going to get easier. But really, does it ever get easier?
I came up with, I do it, my hashtag on my own terms, and it's my new normal. It's it's personal. Yeah.
Right.
I think in the book, I liked how in the book you detailed with your 7 steps, each of your struggles and how you listed it had different aspects of your life. And I think that it was very important for people to understand that it's not just in one area, but it's in different areas. And I think that was great in the book.
Thank you. Yes, it was. Because I think for me, each area I had to deal with family. And then, after funerals, you got finance and all that stuff. And I was just like, okay, I really want to help people. So I really had to be transparent with what was going on. And then when I speak, I get into a little bit more detail as to how it really is, because the financial part of it wasn't something I just bounced back up, because, if you're not prepared and who does get prepared for death? Are you prepared for death? So, and that's what I try to tell people. You need to take care of yourself, your finances, your whatever you want done, however you want it done. Tell people what you want so that, you can, line up for it. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, there was a couple of things that stood out to me personally. When you talked about family and how you have to take care of you regardless of how your family feels about it. And that's that whole boundary setting that we talk a lot about, and just really taking care of self. I thought that it's so important, and it's so needed for people to hear. That there are those times that you have to just worry about, and I just hit my microphone, just worry about self. And I loved that. And
it's okay. And I tell you, it's okay to be selfish. I had to realize I had 6 other children that I was concerned about, but then I couldn't do anything. So it reminds me of when you get on the airplane, what do they tell you to do?
Put the oxygen mask on yourself. Yep.
Okay, I might need to do that. And I had to, and my kids were, because I escaped and went to Germany. Not only did I just deal with myself, I went to Germany, left the country. And my kids, one daughter was in school at FAMU, and she's like, is that what you need to do? Is that really what you need to do? And I was like, yeah, in order to be here for you, I need to do this. So, and it was great. Everybody, I won't tell them to do that, but you have to do whatever you feel is gonna heal you or get you to the next step.
Yeah, there are several things that you said that I want to hit on. First, let me just hit on the point that you said it's okay to be selfish. A lot of people have a difficult time with that. We call it self-care, and I think people need to understand the difference, because even culturally in our society, we think if anytime you step back and you start focusing on you and taking care of you, then you're seen as selfish. Well, no, I'm not selfish. I'm just learning how to take care of me. That's called self-care. And so we have to get this idea of our head of just, because we worry about people calling us selfish, but you go ahead and let me take care of me. Let me make sure, and that's just real. You go ahead and let me take care of me and make sure I'm okay. It's okay to be able to do that, and a lot of people in our society need to know it is okay to just take care of you.
Okay, and that's what it's okay.
Another issue that you hit on is the embarrassment that you had to face.
That was big.
Oh, that was big, because culturally, can I just say, you feel this guilt, and like people are looking at you, almost judging you based off certain things, and that's another thing that we need to talk about.
Well, if I may say, not to cut you off, but not only are they looking at you, judging you, but within the context of faith, they're saying it directly because it's deemed a sin to commit a suicide. So what did you do?
Right.
And I think that that's actually pretty universal. I think that that's cross-cultural as well. Of if your child commits suicide, everyone looks at you and what your part in that was. And that is a lot of guilt and shame that individual have to deal with.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Oh my, okay.
And I know there was like 2 sentences that I actually wrote down that I love so much. It was, my handwriting's horrible. I hope I can read my own stuff. You said in one of your sections, as you work through your struggle, do an inventory of every area of your life. Time in the struggle is needed for you to grow into a better and stronger person. That is going to be like, I'm going to blow this up and make a poster of it. I don't think, and this is grief, this is any kind of struggle. So people don't understand that sitting in that uncomfortableness and really taking time to self-reflect is so needed and so necessary. And I loved that. I just had to say, I loved it. I thought it was wonderful.
Right.
Okay. You got to be willing to be vulnerable.
Yes.
Definitely.
Oh my gosh, we were like in unison. Yes.
Yes.
We have to be willing to be vulnerable.
Yes.
Yeah. And we have to stop putting the time on time.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. We
And
have
with
to stop
that-
putting the time on time because everybody heals differently. So Karen, tell people how they get in touch with you, because I mean, like, you're a great speaker. And that's how I came to know you. I went to a conference and I saw you speak, and I'm like, you so messed up my makeup because I was sitting there crying, but I so needed everything that was going on that day. It was like I left feeling fulfilled, like, okay, I needed this, and I didn't even know I needed it. And in my mind, I kept thinking, like, oh my God, I wonder if I'm going to ever see her again, and how can I talk to her again? And thank
Little
God,
did you know.
we were connected by Miss Patricia, so I love it. So tell people how they can find you. I mean, how do they contact you?
It's one of the things I tell people now. I'm Googleable.
Okay.
Googleable.
As long as you spell my last name right, you can put me in Karen McKoy, McKoy. And then
Okay.
my husband, I'm the real McCoy.
Okay.
Facebook, it's I am Karen McKoy. I'm on Instagram. I have my own my website, which is KarenMcKoy.com. And my new book just hit Amazon. Those 7 steps I put individually into an ebook. So it's pretty much Karen McKoy, but you have to spell it right. McKoy.
Gotta get it right.
Yeah, you gotta get it right. So Karen, thank you so much for just sharing your heart, for sharing your story, for helping our viewers. We are so grateful just to have you on the show.
Yeah. Thank you.
We hope to have you back soon, please.
Let me know.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much. You're an awesome woman, and we're just grateful to have you in our presence. Thank you for sharing. You take care of yourself.
It was awesome to talk to you.
Yes, it was.
You as well. Thank you.
Yeah. You have a great one, Karen. A lot of stigmas, yes. And people struggle with their mental health. They don't know the difference between mental health and mental illness. We're just going to talk about some things.
It's more acceptable for a male to fight, to be angry, to go drink too much, to go sleep around too much, just that kind of stuff. That kind of behavior is more acceptable than a male to cry, to say I'm scared.
And I believe in prayer. But there are some issues that when you walk outside of that building, they're walking outside with you.
You got it. Let me take an opportunity to go ahead and explain what a co-occurring disorder is. Basically, I like the way that you did it, because that's what it is. They walk hand in hand.
Parents allow the TV to babysit their children.
Gaslighting is basically, there are individuals who are very aware that racism does and has always existed.
Remember to continue talking about mental health and how to make yours a priority. Welcome back to Intake. We just had a great interview with Miss Karen McKoy, an awesome lady, international speaker, author, and grief counselor. And she hit on so many things. Ladies, her interview was just simply awesome. I think she's a strong woman, great woman, and she picked a great profession to go into with grief counseling.
She did.
She was real.
Yeah,
she
she's
was real
Very
about
real.
exactly what she's going through, and I so appreciated what she had to say.
Oh yeah,
I did.
oh yeah.
She was what we hope that our, at least from my perspective, what I hope my patients feel that they can be when they meet with me, which is vulnerable.
Right.
She was vulnerable.
Right, right. And I love it because she's just her authentic self. I think the best counselors out there are those counselors who are not afraid just to be themselves, just to be authentic. Because your clients can pick up on when you're trying to just, be this,
Fake
whatever, fake professional. But if you just be yourself with your clients, they can, they seem to respond more to that because people can tell when you're trying to be phony, like you said.
Well,
phony.
you know what? It's even, it's too much work.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's too much work. I agree.
For me,
it's too much work, definitely. She's an awesome person, and I'm just grateful to have her on the show, and our very first show at that. But guys, up until the point that we were preparing to tape the show, we conducted a survey on Facebook. And so we wanted to talk about some of the responses that we got from this survey.
Yeah. Okay, so we asked a couple of questions, and the question that I have here is, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the term mental health? So some of our surveyors said unstable, sick, being stable, dealing with everyday life situation and changes, somebody who has mental health problems. I think you got a couple of answers as well.
Definitely. The ones that I marked here, it says, mental health to me is your capacity to handle life nuisances without freaking out or stressing out. I have another that says, when I hear the term mental health, I think of individuals I know who have not helped. Someone else says, someone mentally unwell, unstable, crazy, chemically unbalanced, etc., or someone with some type of born mental disability. Now, this one right here I found interesting, and I'm almost certain it was a professional. It says, mental health deals with the maintenance of the mind, emotional well-being, and behavioral functions of all persons. It is stigmatized as an automatic illness and treated in our society like a plague. This should not be. People take care of their physical health. They might find that those ailments would disappear if they would simply get a mental health checkup. They check their heart, their limbs. They should also check their mental health.
Yes. Which actually is perfect.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I have a question here that says, when should a person visit a mental health counselor? 39 people said to get help with everyday stress or anxiety. 8 said for a mental disorder. Another 8 said when dealing with grief, and 1 said other. So I don't know what that other is. Yeah. What did you have?
So I had, why do you think people fail to care for their mental health? And there were so many responses that were extremely similar that I just kind of categorized them. Over and over and over, stigma came up. The stigma of actually reaching out for help. I'm going to read a couple of them, but there was stigma, embarrassment on being perceived as weak, denial, being in denial of I don't have a problem, and cultural issues, especially what came up over and over. And I'm going to read one to you. Because it's taboo, especially in the Black community, many folks confuse religion and mental health.
Oh, we just talked about that.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. And there was one other one that I wanted. This one I thought was very interesting that I thought we could maybe talk about. Not sure how or where to find help. And many are probably too embarrassed to look for and or ask for help. So I thought we could maybe touch on the where and the how, because there's lots of us out there.
Exactly.
And the embarrassed, I think that goes in with the stigma. It's the stigma and the denial that we're hoping to make
help
less, and make less of
this
of
whole
an issue.
thing about mental health. Yeah.
We're not scary and we don't bite.
No, we don't.
Some of us might, but
a little bit.
But I do think we should, on top of addressing this, I do think we should address the cultural stigmas.
Yes.
Yeah, because there are a lot of cultural stigmas. Karen herself said it, when we were interviewing her, that in the Black community, we don't commit suicide.
How she said that. We don't do that.
We don't do that. Yeah. But we're finding now that there's a large number. While we're not the highest, still, there are some numbers there. And it shows us that, suicide doesn't discriminate.
No.
Can I just say that? It doesn't discriminate. Suicide ideations doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care about your gender, your race, any of that. What happens is when you just get so mentally overwhelmed, you just lose hope. And everybody, I don't care where you at, how much money you have, how much money you don't have, everybody can struggle with that. And it's important to remember that. So when we talk about these cultural things, we need to move aside from them, because a lot of time culturally we put people in this almost like this bondage of just not dealing with the reality of what's going on with it.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it just hit me, because again, I think that's another cross-cultural. I'm a Southern, white, middle-aged woman, and what is said in this house stays in this house. We do our hair and our makeup, and don't you dare talk about the stuff when you leave the house. It is nobody's business. So there's a lot of different cultures that struggle with that. I do think though that Caucasian people are much more apt to go and get therapy. I do think that, but there's a lot of different.
Yeah. I know that's something that we definitely, Shauna and I, with how we have worked together, how we know each other, that's one of the things where we know definitely in the African American community, especially our men, it's challenging with the perception of what therapy is and even thinking that they have a mental health issue or a mental illness, that they would even go to see a therapist. So, anytime I can say that we would come across a African American male, it was like, how do we support you?
Yes.
Because, my goodness, you're here.
Yeah.
Good job.
How do we support you? Yes, and not to make them feel so awkward, and confused about that. So
something that just dawned on me that I wanna just throw out there. What I hear a lot of is, well, I don't have it as bad as that person, therefore I don't need the help.
Point the finger.
It's that comparing self to others and always using that as a justification, that just because maybe your perception of what somebody else is going through is way worse than what you're going through, does not negate the fact that you're going through a struggle. It does not take it while in doing that, it devalues your own experience.
They use that as a meter. Like if I don't look like that, I'm okay. But no, you're still struggling with something. So why not address that something so that you don't go into something else? Which is what taking care of your mental health is in a nutshell anyway.
And so you wanted to address, how do I find help? I think a lot of people look for people that look like them, talk like them, understand their issues, is why one of the reasons why I love what Taraji Henson, I don't know what's going on with my brain and my mouth. They're not agreeing today. But I don't know. I respect what she's doing with her organization. Because while there are African American counselors out there are not enough of us out there. And a lot of people feel like, okay, I need the help, but where do I find them? And so how do we help people find help?
Well, there are many different, speaking personally for myself, if you go to my website, which is www.therapeutichopecounseling.com, it shows who I'm listed with. There's Therapy for Black Men, which is a website that I've used just to highlight myself, so that if a male individual is looking for a counselor, that at least you have an area to go to. We also have Psychology Today, where you can filter that ad nauseum to find whoever you're looking for specifically, whether it's LGBTQIA or transgender or Black or whatever. You can do that through Psychology Today, and there's a plethora. It's just a matter of asking for help. I think.
So and the reason that we're doing this together is so we can have these conversations. So you walk in, I'm your counselor. What do you want to know to feel safe and comfortable?
What do I want to? That's a great question, to be quite honest. I want to know what your background is. And when I say what your background is, I want to know if you have worked with someone who looks like me, and if you understand to a degree. Like I can honestly say, I think I'm educated enough, and I don't think I need to be educated in school. I just am aware you don't look like me, but I want to know if, as a therapist, that there is a care and concern from what I'm going through.
And how do you ferret out that information?
Talking.
I mean, by honestly ask the question.
Yeah. Because I think specifically with what you just asked me, if I were to go into a therapy session and I'm sitting with you and I'm talking about feeling anxious with our climate, with our current climate, and you were to tell me, well, that's okay, everything's all right, you don't really have to worry about that because that's not really affecting you, I'm out the door. Because you're not validating what I'm feeling. You're not paying attention to the climate either, so you're not the right fit for me.
And I think that's important too. I'm glad you made that example, because people do need to be aware to research the therapists that they're, seeking out, because multiculturalism is important, and every therapist doesn't understand that. We study it, but do you really practice it? You guys know my passion. I strongly advocate against domestic violence, and I think when you look at domestic violence survivors, victims, we ignore the fact that when we're talking about suicide, a lot of them experience suicidal ideations, and and they too, because of this low self-esteem that they deal with. According to the National Correlation Against Domestic Violence, on an average, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the U.S. That's 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men experience abuse from a partner. This is serious. And so we can't overlook that, since the whole show is talking about the things that we need to talk about. Domestic violence is just as important. And we need to address the issues, because that's trauma. There's a whole lot of things that goes with domestic violence, and we need to start talking about these issues more, and not just here and there when things happen. We need to talk about the homicide rates that's currently going on. We need to definitely get, and I love it, our government now is trying to get more mental health counselors into schools, because there is something going on, and because, we only talk about this strongly when we see a school shooting or a church shooting, and we shouldn't wait for things to happen to talk about it. We should actually begin to talk about it more in our society.
And I think it's unfortunate, but the aftermath of a lot of that is there are a lot of movements out there, and I think we talk about that of getting involved. Getting out there and getting involved in these movements to help, because it takes back some of the power for yourself.
Absolutely. And I think what I was hearing from you is that it's very important that we are proactive rather than reactive.
Time is up, you guys. Again, we thank our guest, Miss Karen McKoy.
Yes.
We thank her for being on the show. Guys, join us next week. Remember to continue talking about mental health and how to make yours a priority. So, ladies, when we talk about depression, I think, first of all, we need to make the distinction between depression and sadness.
And suicidal ideations, for individuals who don't know, because that's mostly our lingo, is basically recurring thoughts of suicide, with a plan, without a plan. So it's merely the idea of suicide, and then there's some other factors that we look into.
But depression among elderly people, that is very severe, because they're dealing with getting older.
The script for the movie was my therapy. I literally couldn't, when you're unemployed and no wife, no kids, and you're living off of your folks, it's easy to be depressed, and sitting down your issues, your father issues, your body pain and things. All of a sudden, you can find your way out of it.
If you're looking for more information about a topic that was discussed on one of our shows, please visit intake.tv and check out our resource page.
If you're a professional who would like to be on the show, or an individual who has struggled with mental health and would like to be a guest, email us at info@intake.tv.
Follow us on all of our social media platforms.
Intake is the place to be.
It's because